please stand? Ms. Hamilton, will you do the invocation, please? Father God, we come to you now and we just thank you and praise you for this beautiful day. Lord, we just thank you for all the great work that you're doing in this world. Lord, we just trust you right now. I ask that you are with each and every individual that is in this meeting place, Lord. We thank you for their presence, and we just ask that your presence is here with us all. Lord, please be with these commissioners and just guide them and direct them and help them to make just godly decisions that are in the best interests of the county. Lord, we thank you for the men and women that serve this great country, and we just ask that you continue to keep them and their families safe, and ask a special blessing on each employee and their family of this county. Lord, they are precious, and we just thank you for them. We ask your protection over them. We thank you for all of this in your Son's name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the city assembled, perfect friendship among the United States.
Okay, moving on. Item 1, approval of the agenda. I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, approval of the minutes from March 2nd. I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of accounts payable and payroll from February 1st, 2021. And they just go on. Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're at item 4, public request. And I welcome every one of you here. I'm grateful to have you guys here. I think it's great when the community steps up. But I would ask that you please don't repeat yourself. If someone's already said it and we've already heard it, can you just come up with something new? Because we don't want to just keep hearing repetitive stuff over and over, okay? So that everybody gets a chance and we just don't take it all up with the same thing being said, okay? Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak? You would? Okay. Go up here, please, and please state your name. Pardon? Oh, and be sure you turn the mic on. Push the little button. Yeah, turn screen. Yeah. Is it turned?
My name is Meredith Eaton, and I live in District 2 of Roosevelt County. I'd like to touch on the former home of Washington Lindsay, which is just to our west. He's obviously an important figure. We have a large statue of him in front of our courthouse. We have a school named after him. And if you're foggy from history class, I would encourage you to go read the plaque on the statue. Real quick, we wouldn't have ENMU. We might not have Roosevelt County. We might not have all our farms and ranchers. He was the land commissioner at the time. So we owe a lot to him. With that being said, the idea that this property will be sold and moved, I think, is absurd. I understand that this property was bought with the intention to remove this structure, but did you think you could do it without anybody noticing? I see in your past minutes feasibility studies, traffic studies, things like that. But where are your studies about this? You know, when Xcel put the line that connects to the new substation, about 7 years ago, they did not purchase a single property on that line without doing environmental and archaeological studies. So where are our studies? There are many who believe that this home is on the National Registry of Historic Places, including some professors at ENMU who we contacted yesterday, but were unable to be here today because they're out of town for spring break. There used to be a plaque in front of the house. It's mysteriously gone. I've had one business day between receiving the sale bill and this meeting, which was yesterday. And I was unable to make contact with the State Historical Society before now, but I will continue to attempt until they're notified of this situation. To think someone will purchase and move a 2-story, 100-plus-year-old home is far-fetched. What is the plan if it doesn't sell? Take a bulldozer to it like you did to the garage yesterday? I've heard rumor that there's fear of vagrants and destruction. The house is not in that poor of condition. It's fairly clean, it has a newer roof, and doesn't have a single broken window. And it looks pretty shiny compared to some of the homes, even near our high school, which our youth drive by every day. What you're presenting to do is remove or tear down a piece of history to literally build a parking lot. How can we show our youth the bright future without showing them a successful past? You can be someone and make a difference and be from Roosevelt County. Mr. Lindsay sure did. So what does that look like? To me, it looks like a property where community meetings like extension clubs and 4-H clubs can meet and not compete with basketball practice like they do at this facility. It looks like a place to host kids, cows, and more. It looks like a living history farm, and don't think it can't be done. There are 3 of
We
them.
need to cut it to like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So can you wrap up real quick?
Yes.
Somebody can-
Yep. They've received $20 million grants in the South Valley of Albuquerque to do the same thing. Grants, not loans. It's on the fairgrounds, the largest meeting point in the county. If Roosevelt County didn't want to do this, they shouldn't have put in the time. They should have put in the time, money, and research, and maybe they shouldn't have purchased the property. Haven't we learned from the windmills that not everything is black and white? All I know is I can't and I won't stand by history is literally a race so a loader can have a wider turning spot. Well, my kids
Right.
wonder if
Ma'am,
anyone successful has ever come from Roosevelt County.
thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak? Okay. And can you be sure the mic is on and state your name, please?
Is it on? Yes. Okay. My name is Brandon McAfee. I'm coming on behalf of the Daly family. Bill Daly donated the windmills. We heard just this last week that y'all were auctioning some off. We understand that when my grandparents donated the windmills, we don't have anything to do with them. I guess we relinquished our rights to them. I'm sure there's a law about that. But what we would like to do is to challenge you and the community to start to do a better job of investing in the community. My grandfather, before he donated them, he appraised the collection as a whole. This appraisal was a 6-figure appraisal. So he was not just wanting to give you guys junk. Okay, this was something that he worked years and years and years to collect and to build. I myself did the maintenance every summer growing up. So I know it is time consuming, but one high school kid did it every summer. And we are a little bit disappointed at the upkeep. There was talk of making a path there. Clovis Gray does wells, him and his son. He placed the windmills there strategically for that reason. And now you're having to auction some off because they're in such poor shape. And that concerns us, not only as a family, but as a community. You know, that does seem to kind of be a constant in Portales and Roosevelt County, is we have opportunities to invest in attractions and things for the youth and for the college. And I know we can't do every project that everybody has an idea of, but when you have an opportunity and it's been given and it's been donated and we don't build around it, I think that is a problem. And so, my brother, I won't read his letter. We emailed the commissioners, so you have that. If anyone would like a letter, we have copies. And so, also, if there's something the community can do to help with projects, there's 4-H. We have Floyd, Dora, Vitalis, Elida, all of these schools. Have we reached out to them? What are we doing to invest in our community? Because it seems like there's less and less for the community and for the youth and the college. I mean, we have a college. Let's cater to that. The base isn't that far. We have the opportunities and the resources. And so I just ask that we as community members and commissioners do a better job to improve the process of investing in the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that's inside? Yes, please. I was going to wait and see if somebody was coming in. Nobody? Okay. Ms. Hamilton, did we have any others that emailed or?
No, ma'am. The only one that we received was Ms. Meredith in regards to the public comment, and she was here to share that.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate your input. Okay, we're going to move on to elected officials and department head reports. Ms. Hamilton with the legislative update.
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners, good morning. Thank you very much for this time. So y'all have been receiving a lot of the legislative updates. Obviously, we are counting down Saturday. Can't come fast enough as we've all been watching closely. One of the things that we're paying most attention to, and we've been talking about the most, obviously, has been House Bill 4 as it relates to the Civil Rights Act. And it will be on the floor of the Senate today. We know that they have held it since Saturday. They've been drafting on some amendments. However, they are not the amendments that we have sought. New Mexico counties has been asking for one simple amendment so that they strike the per claimant part out after and leave it at only per occurrence. And that has not been done at this point. And so we're closely watching it. The votes are going to be very, very close. We have talked about committee referrals. We've talked about a variety of different things, but we do foresee that there will be a substantial debate today on that Senate floor. And then, as you know, it's already passed the House, but there are amendments in the Senate, so there will have to be a concurrence, possibly committee, just depending on how significant the amendments are and such. So we will continue to watch that. Another bill that we were really watching closely and really concerned about was Senate Bill 376. This is the one that almost tripled the tort caps limit. We got it stopped last Sunday in committee in SPAC, and so we were very excited to see that it got tabled. It did not have the votes to move on. We are not hearing that elements of that are going to be incorporated in House Bill 4, but we're watching that very closely because obviously that's a very large concern for the rural and small local government entities. We do know that they are working through all of the budget bills. I have provided you an initial list with House Bill 285. That's the capital outlay as it stands. It is not official at this point, but you've seen that we did receive some allocations for road funds, a loader, and the Bonham House repairs over there in renovations. So that is all tentative, pertaining persistent to the governor's signature on that one. They're continuing to move through the House Bill 2, which is a major budget bill. We're excited that Senate Bill 377, that's the junior budget bill, and we do have an additional $50,000 allocation in this bill specific for the new MAT program at the detention center, the medication assisted treatment program. So it's one-time funding, but we need an electronic medical record over at the facility. And so this is very applicable for exactly what we're needing, just one-time funds to be able to really help us get that program started. And that program's on several items later on the agenda, so I will circle back on it, but the funding is unique. The other thing that we're looking at, obviously, with Senate Judiciary, they're meeting again, I believe, this morning, and that yesterday they have 141 bills in the queue, and so we're watching that one very, very closely. House Bill 50 was another controversial bill that we were watching closely. It was going to allow basically individuals to sue over violations of different environmental oversights, and we were very concerned about our agricultural and our oil and gas production entities. They are such predominant parts of this county, and it's sent to House Rules Committee, so it looks like that one should be dead. So we're relieved about that one. We are concerned because we're seeing continual bills that look to be very difficult and problematic for small businesses moving forward. The Mandatory Paid Leave Act and several of those. There's another one, a workers' comp claim type bill that's moving through 268. And it basically says if any employee catches COVID, we're just going to assume it happened at the workplace and we're going to make all employees responsible. And of course, that's very concerning, and it's next to impossible to ever prove that if they do contract that was where, because there's so many other places that they're exposed. So that one is another one that we're watching closely, and it's headed to Senate Judiciary. So the 141 bill queue might be handy for that one. And then, of course, I'm sure you saw the Senate Bill 102 with Senator Purtle's bill changing, taking us to daylight savings time period, died in the House yesterday. So that one is taken care of. The rest of these that we were watching, we're still watching the Livestock Board need inspections, and that's some hiccups as to what agency really needs to be responsible. There's some, our resolution supported the Livestock Board. That's what the cattle growers were supporting, everything. There is a movement to actually see that under the Department of Agriculture. So they're having to work out some things. And then I know y'all have seen several stories about the cannabis bill and that there's some problems with that compromise coming together. Again, we're just trying to watch all of that. That won't be, I'm sure, upsetting for a lot of us. But again, they're working on their bill. They're trying to come together before noon on Sunday. And we haven't seen, the main thing is we were looking because we're concerned about funding for our law enforcement and the additional expectations and enforcements that we know we're going to have to accept at that point. And so there's a lot of structural things that they're working out as well. And there's two bills. There's one in the Senate that deals more with just the tax and is very much leaving the direction up to a local level as to where the dispensaries, zoning can be, keeping them at least a mile apart, allowing the counties to make a lot of decisions. And that's Senator Purtle's bill. And of course, we want y'all to be able to make those decisions here locally rather than the state telling us where everything has to be and how it has to be. However, there is a House bill that's coming through, and that has a lot more of a social justice reform and social programs to it. And so they're very far apart, and there's a lot of work to bring them together. So we'll continue to watch that. Other than that, those are the key ones that we've been monitoring. Of course, there's still those that we've opposed, the Senate Bill 227 that came forward, and Senate Bill 274, and they're moving, so we're watching closely. Also, Senate Bill 376, as I touched on, was killed. So we're going to look at a very busy next 5 days. It just really is a lot to monitor, but we'll be watching committees and keeping y'all informed of everything else. At this point, our legislators, as they have been before the session, as you know, are very well aware of where y'all stand. All the resolutions have been provided to them. They, if they do have any questions, we try to help them with talking points or anything about these bills. And so other than that, I would stand for any questions on the legislative stuff before I move on to the rest of the report. So they did not they did not refer the bill in either branch. Like the House did not refer it to Finance, and neither did the Senate. There was some concern, I'm sure, from the bill sponsors about being able to get it through there. And that has been our argument, because there is several $1,000,000. I think the state put out an estimate, maybe 13 million a year roughly, or somewhere around in that potential fiscal impact. So we argue that it should go to Senate Finance because of the state impact. Senate Finance obviously doesn't look at local jurisdictional financial fiscal impacts, but we know it will at the state. But I don't think there are the votes there to get it to the Senate Finance Committee as originally targeted, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So moving on the other things, the second FEMA application is in the works. Lily and Carol have been working diligently on this one. We've got the initial submission completed. It's for $84,367.22. And that's for reimbursement for overtime for law enforcement and the detention center. We are very pleased that the Income Support Division at the state level has committed to maintaining a physical location here in Roosevelt County for our residents. So that was, y'all know that we've been very active in that. We attended the town hall meetings. We've had numerous conversations with state officials. We really want to make sure that our residents had access to those services and did not have to try to figure out a way to get to Clovis or do it online. It is very cumbersome to try to do the application online. Carol has tried in assisting several people that have come up to our offices. So we're very pleased about that. And as you've seen, a lot of the roof and the gutter work now has been completed here at the Jake Lopez and the Special Events Center, District Attorney's Office, all those places that were there before. And we're going to have a little field trip at the end to go look at some options for y'all with the in respect to the show arena. Nixon is waiting on materials for the next phase of the repairs, which includes the pavilion, the show barn, the hog barn, the poultry barn, the rest of those other facilities. And so our goal, of course, is to make sure we have all of this done before fair time. So we'll continue to work through that. And at this point, we have one last vehicle, the transport van that required the most work for the sheriff's office, and it remains in the repair shop, but early projections are possibly as early as next week being out. And so that will complete our vehicle repairs. And we're going to be right about at that $2 million, $2 million projected cost for the hail damage claim from last June. We'll just continue to have those all repaired. And other than that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, moving on to commissioners' reports.
And do we have a district engineer for our district yet? Replacement for Tim Parkey?
Commissioner Lopez, yes, my understanding is they are in the process of that, and Carol has been talking with their office.
Okay, as soon as we get someone, can I please get contact info with them? Just kind of a touch base. The other thing that I just want the record to reflect is project on Boston. I'm going to stay on that till hopefully not for 4 more years, but hopefully we can get that project done. Have you spoken to any of the city officials in reference to Lyman Boston?
Yes, Commissioner Lopez. So we have, and they actually do have the ability in their budget. It is something that we're having to coordinate with Mr. Lovato. The goal is to have it done before June 30th. However, the weather is not favorable yet for that work. So we will be redoing all of that, and y'all will be seeing a memorandum of agreement coming through in April for that project.
That's great news. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. I was contacted by some residents, and it was on the subject of the all-terrain vehicles on county and state roads. To my knowledge, a few years ago, I thought the state passed a statute that allowed use of all-terrain vehicles as long as they had headlights, taillights, And at that time, I thought we passed a resolution that allowed that in Roosevelt County. After discussing with Miss Hamilton, we can't find anything where Roosevelt County has an ordinance or resolution to allow this. And so I spoke to our sheriff about it, and he asked, I believe it's Mr. Miller with the Game Fish, and I'd like for him to speak on behalf of this ordinance that I would like to put in order to allow people to ride their all-terrain vehicles on county roads from place to place. Malin, would you? Is there anything wrong with him speaking at this moment, Randy?
Go to the podium, please. Please introduce yourself again when you get up there.
Here to speak with you guys about the OHV rules. So because it's passed in Roosevelt County itself does not mean it would be passed for the city. So the city would have to have their own ordinance for that. And so with that being said, we've had some problems like Hagerman is a perfect example right now, where there's an ordinance in the county, but there's not in the city. So everybody's trying to ride their vehicles, their either side by sides, ATVs, on the city streets as well as the county. So with that being said, they're legal in the county, but not in town. So that's one issue. And then the second one comes up because a lot of people are under the impression where, okay, we have the ordinance, that means we can operate on state highways. That's not the case. You have to petition the state would be 236, 467, and so on and so forth, 206, 88. All of those would have to be designated by the state to be able to operate on that anyhow. And for off-highway vehicles, they're fine whenever they're not on pavement. I mean, that's what they're designed for, is off-highway use, and that's what's been relayed to me. But then you're able to determine whether, if you want to go ahead with it, then it'd be, well, do you want all terrain vehicles, or do you just want like no straddle seating, so no four wheelers, or just the like the side by sides. And then another thing would be, would you want everybody to wear safety helmets, or because they're already required to wear safety goggles? But if you decide to do that, then we recommend that the speed limits would be enforced, and so there wouldn't be anything over 35 miles an hour for OHVs. Another thing would be potentially, and we've seen this in a lot of places, for no one under 18 for the operation of it. I mean, at that point, kids are able to have their provisionals, right? They still have to go out with their parents to drive a vehicle. So this shouldn't be any different whether they have their safety permits or not, which they have to take the class per Game and Fish anyway. And then another thing would be to be able to designate which roads they're actually able to operate on. So would it be like Kilgore, or would it be 18th Street? just designating which ones they can actually operate on, but for the county's purposes. Another thing would be, so a majority of the accidents that we've had for game and fish that have been reported to us, and this is going to be conservatively 30 accidents, and majority of them are kids under 18. And in our area alone, we've had 4 deaths due to the OHVs, either in Lee County, our partners to the south there, or Eddy County. They've had 4 deaths this year just concerning OHVs on pavement. And I know there's a couple other places, but I know personally, one of my friends growing up in the little town of Fort Sumner, he was on an OHV on a 4-wheeler and passed away. And if y'all have any other questions or anything like that for me, then I'll take them.
Mr. Miller, I have a question. In the statute, it says agricultural use. Do you still have to pull over people if they're using their ATVs for agricultural use? If they're on county roads, state roads?
It depends, because if you're able to see like what the person's doing, like they have obvious farm equipment or like reels of wire, shovels, stuff like that, then usually we won't pull them over. But if it's stuff like in the bed where we can't necessarily see, then we can still pull them over because we have ultimate authority over the OHV rules.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you say that there was, what were we talking about, a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit? On what?
For OHVs?
Only for OATs?
Correct. That are on pavement.
On county roads? On all roads?
Would be all roads.
Okay.
Well, I mean, and we can't designate here for the city, but that's their ordinance that they would have to pass.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask, so in the statute itself, it actually says that the local authority can establish a separate speed limit. So is the 35 miles an hour what you wish to see?
That would be what we recommend. Just because there are, like I said, conservatively 30 accidents, and most of them are minors. And like I said, that's a conservative number the head of the OHV department had.
I have one more question. What all is considered an off-road vehicle? Is a dirt bike? Is it considered? How do you distinguish between a dirt bike, a street bike, a ATV, a side by side, when they're all 2-wheel, 4-wheel vehicles?
So it's anything that's been designated for off-highway use. So like your Polaris Schrazers, the Rangers. So dirt bikes are technically an off-highway vehicle, but they're not designated for road use. Just because they don't have any of the electronics to run the lights. It's different than a Euro bike, which then is completely different than, well, it's in the same class as motorcycles.
Also have another question. We have a lot of older residents in part of this town, the edge, that use golf carts. Some of them look like ATVs. They got them jacked up. They got big front end.
So we don't cover golf carts. Golf carts aren't off-highway vehicles.
Hmm? Hmm. I want to thank y'all for coming. I just had a couple residents ask me, and I was wanting to get that clarified. I appreciate it, Malin.
I just wanted to add one more thing on there. So, like in Hagerman, they're all going out and destroying farm fields for driving. They don't have anywhere to drive. They're just driving on the county roads, and then they're going off into agricultural land. So that's another big deal here. Where are they gonna go? What do they have to do other than to drive from here to there that they could do in a vehicle if it's obviously separate than the ag exemption?
Madam Chair, I have one more question. You mentioned that you have to petition the state. So is it the responsibility of the local body to have to petition the state for use? And if we don't want them to use it on that, then we don't have to address that in our ordinance, correct?
Correct. And the best way to combat it is to use signage and for enforcement for which roads they can actually operate on. And so in either way, it'd have to be petitioned to the state. And I mean, you could put it in your ordinance, but then it's still if you were to ever want to go on to use it on the highways then you'd have to petition the state.
I have a question, and because I don't understand a lot of this stuff. So you talk about signage and stuff. So if we don't have like signage up that says strictly for ATV use, but we pass an ordinance that allows ATV use, and there is an accident or something on the road, and we haven't posted the speed limit or whatever for ATVs, are we going to be held, will the county be held liable for that since we didn't have signage up like you would on a state highway or something?
Well, the issue would be the county's going to get sued. Whether we're liable is going to be up to the judge and the particular facts, but it would certainly be one reason why we might be found to be liable.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just for clarification purposes, with or without an ordinance, state statute is still going to supersede no matter what municipalities or counties do anyway, right? Is that what I understood?
Can you clarify your question?
Question is whether we pass an ordinance or we don't, state statute in reference to this topic still will supersede any ordinance that a municipality or county government passes regardless, right? Because you said we would have to petition the state anyway.
Just for the highways. The ordinance for what you allow, like Travis County has one that doesn't allow any kind of straddle seating. So dirt bikes, four-wheelers, they're all out. So it just depends on what you're wanting to do for the ordinance for the county itself. Now, it just doesn't mean that's necessarily what's going to happen for the state highways until it's actually petitioned and passed through the state highway department.
Thank you very much. Oh, can you speak up here so we can hear? Malin, can you speak up here so we can hear you, please? Thank you.
So just a clarifying question. If the county does pass this, there is still provisions in the statute that allows for the OHVs to cross a state highway, right? So that would alleviate a lot of what you're, getting from point A to B. Shane, if you were going to check a sprinkler, you could ride county roads and cross that highway if y'all approve this. And what you were saying, Dennis, it can always be more than, but never less than state statute.
And just to kind of add on that, and they can still cross the state highway anyways if they're going from like dirt county road to a dirt county road. That's always been there because it's still off highway and it says it within our stuff to be that you're able to actually cross it.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Does any other commissioners have anything on commissioners' reports? Okay. We're going to move on to resolutions, ordinances, and proclamations. Number 6, item A, consideration of resolution 2021-18, annual certified county maintenance mileage. Mr. Lovato.
This is our yearly thing that we do with the certified miles. We're just bringing it in front of y'all so y'all can approve this.
Second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, but Mr. Lovato, I have a question for you on it real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
On mine, on County Road 19, it says that it's like 24 foot across, and it's got it under fair. That road is not 24 foot across, I don't think.
On 19,
Mm-hmm.
like we are continuing to update this thing every year.
Yeah, because that one's, and it's not even remotely fair.
Horrible. we continue to update this. This is a living document where every year we have to do this.
Okay.
There's sometimes we just don't catch all of them.
Okay.
And as you would look at some of the updates here, he continues to update this every year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may. So one other thing that we want to note is that there was a loss of 102, even though we didn't close roads. You know, we've always talked about having a little bit of cushion on the annual mileage to stay above those types of measurements. So we're right at 1,208 miles. Mr. Lovato didn't cover this part. And also that all of the enhancements made by the Sagamore Wind Farm with all of the new Caliche roads were noted in District 3 as applicable. All of those roads have been enhanced. And then, of course, we always track our local government road funds. Mr. Lovato and Mr. Montiel recertified and worked through a lot of the county last year because there were some that were originally Caliche that just simply are no longer able to grade as Caliche now, and they're back to dirt. So we're working on those. As he said, it's a living document. They do more miles every year as far as getting around to everything. But you will notice that there have been some minor modifications. The exciting thing for me is that we added 53 miles of Caliche Road this year in conversion from original dirt. So those are really good things to see the enhancement of the road conditions. So I just wanted to point out those key things on the report that was included in y'all's packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Savage, how do you vote? Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. Item B, consideration of resolution 2021-19, adopting an amendment to the Roosevelt County Detention Policies and Procedures Manual. Mr. Porter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm asking that you approve the amendment to the policy manual. As you know, we have brought in tablets for the detainees. We have had them in place and been working on a policy to produce, so there's expectations for the staff and the detainees. We have created that policy, it's been reviewed, and that will be added to our policy and manual. That I'll stand for any questions.
On our visit to the detention center, y'all was just implementing the pads.
Yes, sir.
How has that been going over? Is it keeping everything calm between the inmates?
Yes, sir.
Problem?
It has been a very successful project, actually. One of the driving points behind adding the tablets is they said it would be a good behavioral modification tool, meaning that if the behavior became disruptive, that the tool could be removed and it would give them less things to do, occupy their time, and that has been successful. A lot of the detainees have been taking advantage of the programs we have on it. There's a library on it, so that there's over 10,000 books that they can download and read at any times. Gives them access to local radio so that they can listen to the radio. And all this is done through headphones, so it's not additional noise in the day room, so the staff can still walk into a day room and assess it without all this additional noise and sound going on. It allows the detainees to make phone calls from those tablets as well, so they can sit in a corner and talk to their families. They can even do that in the rec yard when they're out there. So it's giving the detainees a little bit more freedom to do some things. There's also self-improvement programs, law library, and things like that on the tablets. So these detainees all have access to these programs more regularly, more frequently, and it has created an uptick in the morale, especially during the COVID times, because we were limited on what we could do, families being able to come visit things. So these were all things that helped curb the attitude of the detainees and keep everything pretty smooth in there. So.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Lopez, have you voted?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Number 7, procurements, contracts, and agreements. Item A, request for approval of submission of FY22 Law Enforcement Protection Funds application by the Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Sanchez. Oh, actually, Sheriff Parker.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you. This is just the Law Enforcement Protection Fund application that we do every year. Basically covers the $27,800 given by the state for training and equipment purposes. So if I could, I'll just pass this to you, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Savage? Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Parker. Item B, request for approval of memorandum of understanding with the Administrative Office of the Courts and Roosevelt County for utilization of their drug information management system for court compliance program. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, so Madam Chair, Commissioners, included in your packet was the MOU that was drafted by AOC. Both myself and County Attorney Randy Knudsen have reviewed it. We did not see any concerns. This will be used by our court compliance management or court compliance program. We're very excited to have access to this free software. So there are no concerns from our review. We would just ask for your approval.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Item C, request for approval of contract renewal for the purchase of crushed caliche for the road department from White Rock Crushing. Mr. Lovato.
Madam Chair, visiting with White Rock Crushing, they're still happy with what they're providing with us, and we're happy with them. So we're seeking your approval for today.
Yes.
And I'll make the motion.
We got a motion and a second. Commissioner Savage? Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, request for approval of memorandum of agreement with the City of Portales, City of Clovis, City of Tucumcari, County of Roosevelt, County of Curry, County of Quay, and County of Debaca to commission a feasibility study for a psychiatric hospital in Clovis, New Mexico. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners. So this is the project that we've been talking about over the past several months. We're very excited to see that we're advancing to this. As you know, we have a substantial problem within our local county and communities with this, and this would be a regional facility. We're looking at a possible location there, obviously within Clovis and Curry County. There's access to the facilities, land, and things along those lines. So what this agreement does is commission the feasibility study of such a project happening. We are looking at a public-private partnership. It would not be solely on the responsibility of the county. We would be responsible for 9% because it is based upon the population, and I'm sure you saw that noted in the memorandum of understanding or agreement. The majority, of course, falls on the City of Clovis for their substantial part of the population. So we have that. It will not exceed $60,000. So our financial responsibility would be $5,400. You do have that availability within the professional line item of your budget. And we're not certain how long this will take. We just want to get it commissioned. I know it's on our agenda today. The city of Portales, I believe, has it on Tuesday, and Curry counties. So I know that it's starting to work through the entities. I would stand for any questions.
How much did you say our responsibility would be for the study?
9%, $5,400.
What would our, if the study went through and they built it, what would be our obligation to this?
That's what we're looking at. So you need to have a feasibility study to establish what the overall cost is. The goal is that it's more of a public-private partnership, and that you have a private company that are behavioral health experts. We are not, as you know, as a governing body or my office, we're not experts in this field. And that's not something that we look to do. We know healthcare is best handled in the hands of such, but we need to have a facility and we need to have a place to go. The detention center cannot continue to be a de facto mental health hospital for all those entities that law enforcement doesn't want to deal with and the hospital cannot house. Like, we do not have a place for them, and we've got to have somewhere to go. We see an alarming amount of frequent arrests from the local agencies, especially here within the city, of those with mental health substantial, and we cannot get beds for them often. If in the event we ever get a bed, a lot of times they will beat law enforcement back. If Sheriff Parker was in here, he could talk to you about it. Like, they have beat them back from Las Vegas before. So we know we need something local.
Madam Chair, real quick, just to add to that, this initiative actually occurred in Debaca County in the early 2000s. It was the Rosati Project, Regional Substance Abuse Treatment Initiative, and I was part of that board of directors with our CEO, Mental Health Resources, and it made it quite a long ways up to the point where they had hired upper management, old hospitals, so forth, and it just kind of belly flopped. There wasn't the support that we had expected to have with this initiative. With the feasibility studies that I've seen in the past, Clovis, New Mexico would be ideal. There is a lot of questions, like the one that Commissioner Lee posed, but with this feasibility study, we're anticipating that all those questions can be answered as soon as that study's completed. So I would be in support of this wholeheartedly. It's a much needed service, unfortunately, but it is needed service in our communities.
Okay. So I do need a motion. That's what I was asking, if it was a motion. Okay, and I'll second. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Okay. How do you vote, Commissioner Dixon, or Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Yeah. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, item E, request for approval of scope of work with Behavioral Health Services Department in Roosevelt County for RISE project for MAP program at the Roosevelt County Detention Center. Mr. Porter and Ms. Hamilton.
Good morning again, Madam Chair. We wanted to discuss that we are requesting you approve the scope of work. What a MAP program is, a medicated assisted treatment program. And this is a program that will help people that are addicted to alcohol and opioids and some other drugs as well. And what this does is this gives us the ability and opportunity to provide counseling, additional medications and stuff to help with people upon intake. And then ultimately the program will help with transitional care, meaning assisting those people when they leave, trying to get them to resources, whether it's housing, fooding, transportation, and hopefully to their next scheduled appointments and things like that. So in hopes that this program was successful to reduce the recidivism and people coming back into the facility, and hopefully help those that are in need, identifying some of their weaknesses and providing some opportunities for them. So with that, I will stand for questions.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner, so both myself and the county attorney reviewed these. The scope of works are just outlining the deliverables and what's going to be accomplished. We just received the notification that we, in our grant application, as we had been discussing with y'all, they really wanted to have a MAP program. They had access to some federal funds. We wrote an application that had everything in there that we could possibly think of needing. We requested $386,000, and that's what they chose to award for us. So we dreamed big, and that was definitely what we were afforded in this grant. So this will afford us the opportunity to be able to establish this program within the facility there at the detention center. Both of these scopes of work, again, just highlight, but there's nothing binding at that point in terms of what's expected or anything penal, I guess, really, for the county is how I should say it. So we would stand for any questions, but the next two items are both, it's just that there's two pots of money that they're having to pull from at the state level. There's a RISE program, and then there's also a MAT program. And so thus the need for two different scopes of work, because basically it's going to be two different grant allocations.
I have a question just about the MAT program.
Yes, sir.
If this will start when they're in the detention center, can they carry on with the same program since it's with the health services after they get out?
The goal of the program is to bridge that gap with the community resources, bring people to the table so that that transition can be a soft handoff. So the hopes is that they will be able to help participate and work with our staff so that we can transition those people to their next appointments and continue them. And then hopes that those outside agencies, whether it's the hospital or MHR or whatever the service it is that may be required, it's what we call a soft handoff, meaning from here, this is what's going on, this is what we recommend, and then they pick it up on their end and continue that service. The program has gone all the way to recommending that when they get out, helping pay for some transportation, using local transportation to get them to their appointments, because a lot of the studies say that getting them to their first appointment after they get out is super important. So part of what we built into that was that they may need some transportation. And then there's some other things built into it too, to try and make that exit from detention successful and positive as possible so that they can succeed in the program, sir.
With that, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to.
Oh, real quick, Mr. Lee, before you make your motion, can I say a couple things, Madam Chair, members of the board? What Commissioner Lee, I think, was asking is if we're going to have continuum of care and the warm handoff that you talked about. I hope it's not a conflict, but that's exactly what I do with mental health resources at the 4 counties that we serve. I am the community liaison, and we're working hand in hand with different agencies, detention centers, clinics, rehabs, hospitals, so that that warm handoff can occur. And we ensure through Caring New Mexico that they do get those first appointments, housing, employment, any linkage to any other resources within their community, just so that we can keep them out of jail, out of rehabs, out of ER rooms, and so forth. So I think this is a really, really neat project where we can collaborate with local detention centers for the betterment of the whole community, the whole state, in all actuality.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you, Justin.
I have no problem with Mr. Lopez voting on this motion to closing. So with that, I'll make the motion that we accept approval of the behavioral health services for the MAT program.
I'll second. We got a motion and a second. Commissioner Savage? Yes.
Yes.
Just a quick question to our legal counsel. Is it okay if I not be a conflict of interest?
I don't see a conflict, but you announced it publicly, and that's all you need to do, so.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, with that,
I will also make a motion to accept line F, the request for the approval of the scope of the MAT program.
We got a motion and a second. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Item G, request for approval of non-client agreement for collaborative member agency non-medical services with Falling Colors Corporation in Roosevelt County for the MAP program, Roosevelt County Detention Center.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner. So this is the contractual part of the agreement in terms of the collaborative. The Falling Colors Corporation is actually the vendor that will be issuing the payments to the county. So this was included in your packet. We had to go through a whole application, but I wanted approval before we did the electronic signature. This is just for reimbursement. So again, this goes with the other two scope of works, and it has been reviewed by myself and the county attorney.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve. Got a motion and a second. Commissioner Savage? Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H, request for approval of the revised Roosevelt County Facility Agreement. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners. So in your packet is the revised agreement. I had asked Mr. Knudsen to help with the necessary amendments because we needed to add some kind of language in there in regards to the public health orders and shifting that responsibility to whoever is utilizing the facilities. At this point, as we prepare for our public auction on March 27th, you've seen that we've done a lot of staging with vehicles and we're pulling out old equipment, everything that we've had authorization to dispose of at this point. And so we'll be staging all of that on the grounds. Bill Johnson Auctioneers is actually going to facilitate that auction as a public auction for us for disposal, as they have. We've usually done it at their facility, but they'll be doing it here. We've actually invited the city to participate as well. So with all that being said, there will be an extensive amount of equipment and different vehicles and things to dispose of. So April 12th will be the date that we'll be able to open our facilities. As you see, our remodel project here in the Jake Lopez is coming along nicely. Gary and Anthony have been doing a great job. The new windows being in, I think, are really going to help with a lot of, and you hear the sound like you noted without all of this. So we're excited to see the capabilities shift as we're able to bring that in. This again will be all determinant on her orders and the ability of our county to stay green, because if we go back to yellow, then she closes all indoor facilities for recreation. And so it will be based on the color. So as long as we're green or turquoise or whatever the new color is going to be, we should be fine in those realms. And so all of that will be part of it. And in the agreement, it talks about how we have this, as well as we're bringing it to the attention. We started receiving some calls and advising them that we would be looking at the new agreement. And once the commission had passed, then we would look at booking after April 12th. So other than that, I would stand for any questions. I just wanted y'all to see that we did have that addressed in the agreement. They will still be required to provide proof of insurance when applicable and all of those things, depending on the purpose of their rental.
I have a question for you on that. I noticed on there, like our two volunteer fire departments that we have, that there is a fee to rent the facility for the day or what are the hours. Does that apply to the volunteer firefighters as well, or the fee? Do they have to pay a fee as well?
Not if it's for official business. It's just Arch was the one that came and actually had some community people that wanted to utilize it. And as you know, that the rule of the anti-donation statute prevents anyone from just using a government facility without paying some type of marketing or market fee. And so that's what that was established. But if they're using it for official purposes, no. But if one of them wanted to use it for their child's birthday party, then yes, they would pay the $25 an hour or whatever it would be. So that's what has been done. And it's only the two rural departments that are underneath the county.
Right. I was just wondering, because this is just my personal opinion, and I'll just let you, I'll state that I am on a volunteer fire department in Elida. So it's not on either one of these, but when you have volunteers, I just have a problem charging, I don't see where they should have to pay a fee. I mean, they volunteer their time and their energy, and I'm not comfortable with like the actual people that are on the fire department having to pay to rent the facility.
On that too, I have a problem with it, Ben, also. The next question is the $75. Does it go to upkeep the fire department, or county?
No, all of that stays separate. And this isn't the departments that are wanting to do this. The departments had community members that wanted to utilize their facilities. So this is the unfortunate part of that anti-donation language and that anti-donation statute, which I'm sure the county attorney can speak to much better. But this was established. Again, we're not having volunteers that are asking for this. It's actually the fire chief that asked for them, and they were already included on the prior agreement. This isn't something new that was just added. This was on the last agreement that the commission approved. So this has been something that's been standard. It was when the state came in, they said, you cannot continue to let them have facilities without charging. So
these fees go back to pay the electric, the water, the gas, the cleaning fee, whatever was associated with whatever event they had in there, because they know they would have to go in and do that within the station.
Could be an audit issue.
Yes, it would be.
Madam Chair, I need to add some, I am familiar with the anti-donation clause to our state statutes, but do we have to charge fair market value, or is it discretionary? Like, can we charge individuals like that, entities that are volunteer firefighters, for instance, can we charge like $1? Do we have that discretion, or does it have to be fair market value?
Well, all of these, the only reason this becomes a real concern is because the auditors come in, and any time that anytime that governmental facilities are being used, there has to be compensation for the public benefit. It's the public that we're trying to protect here. So the auditor will write us up on those. So yes, it does have to be market value. And it's the Constitution. It's we keep saying statute, and I understand, but it's really the New Mexico Constitution that prohibits governmental entities from freely giving, letting goods or services be used for free, even if it is for volunteers.
Just to clarify, if they rent it, it goes into a separate account that's listed as Arch Fire Department. If they rented theirs, and if Mill and Sand rents theirs, it goes into Mill and Sand's account. Nobody else will use it but those two departments.
Correct. And this is something that has been on there for many years, and to date, they have not rented out either facility. They just have it in place.
Is there any more discussion? With that, I'll, got a motion and a second. Commissioner Savage, how do you vote? Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. I, request for approval of reaward of ITB 2021-2 used tractor for road department to the next lowest bid, the equipment for a 2014 John Deere totaling $110,000. Ms. Rivera.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair. So this is the reaward request, since the tractor we had initially requested will not meet the county's specifications. In the ITB, we require an inspection certification, and after careful inspection from the vendor, they notify the county that the tractor would not meet specifications. The service shop had found some issues that were going to be very costly. So with that being said, we greatly appreciate the vendor's honesty, and we would like to request approval of award to B Equipment for the 2014 John Deere tractor totaling $110,000, which is the next lowest bidder for ITB 2021-2.
And I'll second. We got a motion to second. Mr. Savage? Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Request for approval of ITB 2021-03 Roosevelt County Health Center roof replacement. Ms. Rivera.
So we did release a bid for the roof replacement at the health center. We would like to request approval to WWRC Inc. for their total bid of $174,459.92, which was, of course, the lowest bid to the county.
Okay, with that.
Is that on the insurance plan, or is that out of the fund?
So Commissioner, Madam Chair, Commissioner Lee, this is actually out of the capital outlay allocation. So the insurance granted a certain allotment that was there, but we also received capital outlay. We knew that the repair or the replacement was going to exceed what the insurance has. The interesting thing is that this is basically going to come in at about what we received in the capital outlay allocation. It was a very competitive process, and in fact, this one bidder was approximately $100,000 lower than the second responsive bidder and the third one. There were two that were very close to the next range. So this will just primarily utilize capital outlay and then a little bit of insurance for that. And so that will take care of our allocation that we were able to secure last year.
The governor's signature, correct?
No, this was last year.
Last year's.
Then I'll make a motion to award. I'll second that.
Discussion real quick. Are these the same individuals that did the La Casa Senior Center roof?
No, this is a different company.
Okay.
But all of the roofs that are being replaced, like the senior center and such, are subject to inspection and final inspection. So if there's something we need to discuss offline after, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll stand with my second, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Yes. Motion carries. Okay, item 8, new business. A, request for approval of disposal of miscellaneous small assets by public auction. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes. So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I feel that y'all had this included, your list in there. So the only thing that we're asking for approval of donation is, and I feel that we need to list all of these, even though it was in your packet, but we can note the spreadsheet in the minutes. There's a hood vent, a tilt skillet, a commercial mixer, a steam kettle, a commercial griddle, a convection oven, a condenser unit for a walk-in refrigerator, and a condenser unit for a walk-in freezer, a commercial washer, an a traveling irrigation sprinkler, a 12x16 roll-up door, which came out of the back of this building, and a design jet plotter out of Mr. Montiel's office that no longer is functional. And those are the items that were listed for disposal.
I have a question on some of the items. Most of them seem like they all need repair, something besides the water. Real, why are we wanting to get rid of it?
We don't utilize it. And so it has been sitting out there. It has been years. Both Mr. Spinks, the maintenance director of facilities that handles it, as well as Mr. Lovato, we actually bring the water in from the trucks. We utilized it when we had access to a well over there, but then there was issues with, I think it was Hampton Farms well, right, Ricky? So Hampton's Farm had a well, but they did some work and we can no longer work into it. So we have no application for it, and it's still in good shape. And we want to be able, somebody else needs to be able to buy it and use it, since we have no use for it. It has not been used in 10 plus years at this point. So we just don't want it to sit there and rot.
So for the reason we lost our well, we cannot use the water. Well, it wasn't our well, but
Access. Yes, sir.
okay.
We used it on the outdoor arena. It's just now we use the water truck off the road department to go water when we get those grounds ready for any kind of rental.
Okay, with that, any more discussion? I'll entertain a motion. I got a motion. Okay, got a motion and a second. Mr. Savage? Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, request for approval of disposal by public auction of one 2009 Ford F-250 and one GMC Sierra from the road department. Mr. Lovato.
2008 GMC, and it's two of our older pickups in the fleet. And we have replaced them in the last year or so with some newer ones. So these two we would like to get rid of with y'all's approval.
Amend that from 2009 to 2008.
The Ford is a 2009, but the GMC is a 2008.
Oh, the GMC is a 2008.
I'll make a motion to approve. Got a motion and a second. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Savage? How do you vote?
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, request for approval of invest $1,500,000 into the Morrington Capital Improvement Investment Fund and up to $1 million into the Morrington General Fund Investment Account. Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners. So Ms. Sanchez wasn't able to be here today, and she asked me to present this item on her behalf. She is asking approval for those two investments to be moving those funds from general fund to the investment fund. As you all are aware, they're not paying anything right now, just sitting in the bank. So she wants to go ahead and get those. Last year, the commission set up and established the capital improvement fund, which y'all will be able to utilize coming this budget year when there are individual or departments that are asking for fleet or building repairs or anything along those lines, which will take a huge relief off of your operational budget. So we want to look at moving those funds. Both myself and Ms. Sanchez reviewed where we're at on the budget, any additional expected expenditures, and some of these other large projects that we're looking at. So we feel very comfortable with where the cash levels are with these requests for transfers. And each time she brings these transfers before the board for y'all's approval before she moves those monies.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve. Any discussion? Got a motion in a second. Mr. Savage, how do you vote? Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, inspection of the show arena, roofing, gutter system, and consideration of 2 repair options. We are going to go over the show arena. Anybody that wants to go is welcome to attend. We're going to go inspect this and see what needs to be done, and then we'll come back in here.
Well, I